There's like 3 clicks and then...
I've been watching Archive 81, so...
Oh, okay. I started that.
It's creepy.
I got a little creeped out. I had to stop.
Yeah. Like, multiple points, my creeped out level was much higher than my interest level. So I'd stop, but then I'd be like, dang, I want to know what happened. So I just stay stopped, because I watched all the first 8 episodes, and it was lame.
Did you ever watch Orange is the New Black?
No.
Okay, then this isn't going to matter to you, but one of the characters from Orange is the New Black, one of the actors, is like the main character in Archive 81, like the friend he keeps calling in the first episode. Yeah. It's that guy, but he's like unrecognizable. Oh. And I didn't notice it until I saw it on like a BuzzFeed article thing. Yeah, you good? Is your cocaine habit like really bothering you today?
It is. Sometimes when the coke comes out, you have to kind of just lick it just to keep it in there.
It's called gummies.
Yeah.
Let's not put that on the internet.
Two nurses lose their job for possession. We only know these things because working in the ER. Like, hello.
Dude, I have seen some shit. We have seen some shit as nurses. And do you ever get like flashbacks of something that you thought you had forgotten and then it just will materialize? Yes. And you're like, oh, there's where the trauma is coming from.
Right. Like the one guy that broke his dick. I'm never going to forget that.
I don't think I was present for that one.
No, it was so much blood. It was so much blood.
How did he do this?
So apparently, and I did not know this. Are you recording? Yeah. You can.
This is the good shit. This is where
like,
Juliann and I thrive.
I didn't come for this surface bullshit.
No, let's talk about bleeding penises. Let's go.
So apparently, when you have an erection, if that like gets broken, even though it's not an actual bone, we know it's not broken, but because it's so hard, if it gets bent the wrong way quickly, it can tear the urethra and even like other like vascular parts of the penis, and that's what happened to him.
But what was he doing?
He was having intercourse per him. And so
hold on. I think it's important to note that it's per what the patient said. Like, you cannot prove what he was doing.
Per patient.
He said he was having sex. We just don't know who or what with.
I don't know what
Have
with.
the emphasis on the what.
So anyways, he was just like, am I ever going to be able to have sex again? I'm like, bro, I need to know if you're ever going to urinate again. Like, I don't know. There's so much blood. And the paramedic said there was so much blood at the house. And, I mean, yeah, he went to the OR. And I just, that's the thing about the ER. Like, you never get follow-up.
You don't get the follow-up.
You never, like, find out what happened. It's just like, yeah. Anyways, but I didn't even know that was possible.
I remember a lot from our time when we worked in the ER together. Okay. And I have a couple of real stunning stories to share. One of my favorites was, don't look away when you're hanging drywall. Because like you're holding it up with one hand and you're holding like a nail gun with the other hand. Yeah. And this dude like happened to like look over his shoulder and his hand like shifted. And so where he was trying to put the nail in here, it ended up going like through his finger. So what did we learn? Don't look away while we're hanging drywall. I did get to meet one of the puppeteers of Miss Piggy. Have I never told you this story?
No.
Okay, so this was when I worked in registration. So this is how you know it was like forever ago. Like if I had signed an NDA, the NDA would be expired at this point.
Question. Is the inside of your car light supposed to be on?
Oh no, it's not.
The inside of the car light.
I can unlock it from here. If you could just like, I think it's the dome light.
Katie left her car light on.
My bad, fam.
Fine.
It's totally probably fine. I left it on the other night, like a whole night, like a whole 24 hours.
Hey, so my name's Juliann Joudry. This is Katy Brown.
Hi.
Welcome to For the Caregiver.
Just casually.
Katie and I go way back. Like y'all just came in on our conversation. We were talking about broken dicks, but Now,
Which would be a normal conversation at every nurse's station near you.
Literally
Every
any nurse's station near you. So that's it. That's where we're at. Katie left the lights on in her car. She just fixed that. And no, she didn't. No, she didn't fix it.
Because I unlocked it from my phone.
So now I'll turn up.
No, like I unlocked it. So would you go out? Would you be able
to
to?
take care of the rest?
Yeah.
What do I do now?
You open the door and then unclick the dome light.
Oh, you turned them on.
Yeah.
Ah, gotcha.
So
I don't know where to go for that.
we were just talking about how the
Should I
best
set off the
podcast-
horn and lights while he's out there?
Yes. Yes, you should.
I started at the hospital where we worked together in 2009.
Oh, wow.
I think I heard it go off. I just want him to come inside and be like, I don't know what I did. Because if there's one thing I'm going to do in my life, it's always shenanigans. Shenanigans.
It's true.
I am ready for shenanigans. I started in 2009 in registration.
Okay.
And so this is amazing. I started in registration in 2009, and so you would get to see everybody's insurance card. So you, and then you had to figure out where everybody worked. And so this guy hands me an insurance card that said SAG-AFTRA, Screen Actors Guild, like union insurance.
Oh, wow.
And so that begs the question, how did you get this? Because you only get that if you've worked like a union job
Right.
in the Screen Actors Guild. And he was like, he was there. I can't even remember who was the patient at this point, but like he and his wife were in the room. And his wife goes, well, ask him about his first wife. And I was like, ma'am, I am just trying to like register. Like this is,
No.
I'm just trying to mind my business. And she goes, no, ask him who his first wife was. And at this point, it was a hostage situation. So I was like, who's your first wife? And he goes, it was Miss Piggy. I used to work for Jim Henson's puppet studio, and I used to be one of the puppeteers for Miss Piggy. And that was like his union job, was that he worked for Jim Henson for years.
That's so interesting.
And then so these people, to this day, I think are the coolest people I've ever met. They were retired, and she wrote fairy tale books.
Uh-huh.
And he sold like a wooden accompaniment to that, which was like little doors. Like the story would go that fairies could enter your life through like the knots in trees or like in corners in your house.
Okay.
So in his little wood shop, he made little tiny doors like the size of your cell phone that you could put in the corner of your house to let fairies come in. And that was their retirement job. Like, talk about the coolest people. They definitely smoked a lot of weed just based on looking at them. But I was like, you guys are living the dream. Like, this is so sweet. Like, they're clearly in love with one another.
Aww.
And just retired and like doing cute stuff.
Just doing like fun things.
Yeah.
So we have to retire early enough to be able to do that, I feel like.
Well, my next career will be either a sugar baby or a trophy wife. So that's what I'm working towards.
I mean, we talk about OnlyFans all the time. Like, if we just did OnlyFans. Like you were saying the foot thing. Like, we have our socks on because there's some freaking weirdos out there.
No, but we don't kink shame. If you like feet, you can like feet, but you got to pay me first.
Well, this is
My
not the
Cash
forum
App is
to
in the
like
bio.
feet, is what
Listen, you want to retire early, you got to
like
hustle
feet
all
somewhere
the
else.
time.
It's true.
You really do.
Yeah.
I just don't have the energy to hustle all the time.
I don't have the energy to hustle any of the time.
No, I have the energy to walk from my refrigerator to my bed and then from my bed to my refrigerator.
I will hustle back if it's like cold enough. I'll hustle back to the bed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So funny today. This podcast, I don't know where we're going with this, but I was working out with my trainer. And
That's hustle.
Yeah, I have a bad right shoulder, right? So traditionally, everybody that knows me knows that I can squat a lot. I have strong legs, and I've always worked on legs. So I started to try and want to do more upper body. And so I was doing biceps today. And we were at the burnouts, we're at the cable thing, and I'm like trying, and my shoulders just overcompensating, doing all these weird things, and not allowing my movement to be correct. Anyway, my trainer just looks at me with like the most sincere facial expression, and she's like, "Oh, you're so weak." I said, I looked at her, I said, "I know, bitch. That's why I'm here.
That's why I'm paying you."
It's like literally what we're doing here. And we just both died. She's like, "I didn't mean it like that." It was just so funny.
That's when you know you're about to get so humbled. Is when someone looks at you. And I have to stop myself because I cannot play poker. I cannot play poker. But I have to have very serious conversations with people. And I have to be like, "Bitch, fix yo face" in my head before I say some like humbling shit and be like, "So, things are not progressing the way that we would like for them to. So we're going to add some extra training in and, get you to that point and help you progress professionally." But in my head, I'm like, don't fuck it up. Don't make a face. Because then also when I'm trying to be serious, I laugh.
Same. What is that about? What is that about?
Like, if you deliver me bad news, tears. I will cry.
Right.
I cry at everything. But if I have to deliver you bad news or
I'm
say
laughing.
something mean to you, I am laughing because I am so uncomfortable.
It's terrible. That's interesting coping mechanisms. We could probably talk about how we got that coping mechanism, but I want to know what's going on with you. So you did registration,
Yes.
then you did what?
I became a unit secretary in the emergency room,
Oh, yeah.
which is the time of my life that on my resume I wish I could put chaos coordinator because I feel like that better defines the role. Because you're really like, people think secretary and they think that you're like answering the phone.
Yeah.
But back then also, and this is going to date us, and I'm really sorry for what I'm about to say, we used to use paper charting.
We did. I remember.
It was not that long ago.
It was really not.
It was really not
I promise,
that long ago.
guys, it wasn't that long ago.
It was not that long ago, but paper charting, answering the phones, making sure the doctors were headed in the right direction, making sure the nurses weren't eating the doctors alive, and vice versa. But in that particular environment, it was the nurses eating the doctors alive.
It was. It always.
And then just dealing with the general public,
what
and
we do.
anytime you have to deal with the general public is always
Right.
a lot.
It's that buffer between the like yeah, if I'm the nurse, I'm going to the secretary and I'm like, "Hey, when room whatever's daughter calls back, I'm not taking that call." And so now it's that secretary's responsibility to be that buffer and have to say no, like, "Nope, I'm hanging
And
up
also,
now."
that phone number was public. That phone number was not.
Still is.
That phone number is not private. That phone number is public. So people would call all the time. And I still remember people would say, "I just wanted to talk to a doctor." Okay, well, thank you for calling. If you feel like you're having a medical emergency, please hang up and dial 911. Or you can come to the emergency room and register to be seen. But unfortunately, we cannot provide medical information over the phone. And then I would get yelled at. I still got it. And then I would get yelled at and then rinse and repeat 3 times. And then they would hang up and call back.
Yes.
Nope, still that bitch. Sorry, not. And then
Hey, it's still me.
still me. Oh, you wanted to talk to my supervisor? It's me. Me.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Like, I wish I could forward your call.
Oh God,
to a
I wish I
supervisor.
could give your call to somebody else, but unfortunately they're like elbow deep in someone's butthole right now, so no. And then I became a clinical technician. So I did secretary for 4 years, clin-tech for
June wasn't ready.
I got him with that one. See, this is going to be my favorite game tonight is how can I make June crack? I got your number, baby. What's up? Let's go. I became a clinical technician. I did that for 4 years, and I was in nursing school for the last 2. And then I've been an ICU nurse since 2017
Yeah.
in the neuro ICU, which I love. I love it.
How was neuro ICU affected by COVID specifically?
It was really interesting. So neuro ICU is interesting for a lot of reasons because nobody likes neuro. Like once you get into a specialty ICU, nobody wants to touch it. So like people will take like if you have to offer a different ICU their choice between two patients,
Mm-hmm.
like you have a bed and neuro ICU has a bed, and technically both of these patients are supposed to go to neuro ICU, they will take the less acute patient. They'll take like the less sick patient because they're like, ugh, I don't
Yeah.
do that. Whereas I'm like, give me that. But in COVID, an ICU bed is an ICU bed.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of, all of the ICUs had to break down that barrier of what they were willing to accept and learn how to take care of them. So all of our rooms, because traditionally not all ICU rooms are negative pressure.
Right.
So all of our rooms became negative pressure almost overnight.
Yes.
And then there was a high incidence of people who had a stroke or a bleed, and then they were swabbed for COVID, or they were being treated in the outpatient setting for COVID and then had a stroke. Less likely a bleed, more often an ischemic stroke. So, but then an ICU bed is an ICU bed. So if we had a bed available and we had to take somebody with COVID ARDS, we took somebody with COVID ARDS.
Right.
But they would try and give us the neuro COVID ARDS. So it just kind of depended on the day.
Yeah, it's so interesting to talk
June's
about.
got his hand up. Yes, June.
What?
What's negative pressure in COVID?
So negative pressure. So in this room, I don't know how to describe this room. But
Negative air pressure is.
thank you. Juliann is smarter than me.
That is not true. Is a means of escape for. So I am rerouting the air in the room to actually suck away from the door and go out in a different way. And so those rooms have specific doorways and they have specific exits for the, what's it called? The
It's
ventilation.
like a big filter too.
The
that can
ventilator,
filter.
like, put the ventilator.
The
ventilator.
the
What am I
filter.
even saying?
I don't even know anymore.
What? What
air
is that
vent, the
called?
HVAC.
vent. The
The
air
HVAC.
vent literally goes out of the room.
Yeah.
And so it creates a vacuum and a negative pressure that pulls air out as opposed to the air getting out into the hallways. That would be ideal for anybody who has airborne issues. Like it's
Like
those,
TB, stuff like
yeah,
that.
like tuberculosis. Those rooms were created for stuff like that. So like a unit might have two negative air pressure
all of
rooms.
our ICUs had two.
But when COVID happened, now I need every single room in the hospital to be negative air pressure. And so it was a big systems engineering thing to get through and create that.
Like
literally they
from
were
the outside of the hospital, drill a hole in the like
They made
cut a
holes
hole in the wall,
in
like
the walls.
Bugs Bunny style, and then put
they
these
put
filters
these
in.
filter systems that pulled the air out into.
And so
outside.
we have so many rooms that when they put all these filters in, it accidentally made the unit negative pressure. And because most ICUs are a locked unit, meaning like you can't just walk onto the unit, you have to like press a doorbell and be like, I'm here to see room 123, Mrs. Jones. We couldn't keep those doors closed. It was literally sucking. It made the unit negative pressure, which is great, but it also kept setting off the door alarm the first like week, and engineering had to come and like reinforce the doors. So it was just like a very first world problem. We were like, this is great. Like, I'm glad we had the PPE we needed. We had the engineering support. But we learned a lot. We learned a lot really fast.
Really fast. And what I was saying is an ARDS.
Oh,
is,
yeah, sorry.
Is
Not everyone knows it.
I mean, but yeah, nurses will know it. Do you want to talk about ARDS? Do you
Yeah,
want to
we can talk about ARDS.
Take it away.
So, and of course, now that I'm talking about it's basically really complicated organ failure.
Right, it's like acute respiratory distress, right? Or ARDS. Why are we?
Acute respiratory. Why am I blanking
Why
on
are
this?
we
You put me in
blanking
front
on
of a
ARDS?
camera and every brain cell left my body.
The microphone. Acute respiratory.
There's a camera right there, though.
There is. It's the mic for me.
It's the mic that does it for you?
Oh gosh, acute respiratory
Would you rather rate me?
something syndrome, distress syndrome.
No, I'm looking it up. Oh, it's respiratory distress syndrome. I
Yeah,
don't
acute
know what I
respiratory
thought
distress
D was
syndrome.
going to stand for.
So,
besides,
I know.
You know. So acute respiratory distress syndrome means that you can't breathe. And when you can't breathe, you're not getting what? Oxygen. And when you're not getting oxygen, it's not being filtered through to your organs, and then your organs start to die.
So you go into multi-organ system failure. With what we saw a lot with COVID pneumonia was this rigidity, and we'll still see, of the lung compliance to, so like your lungs are very pliable. They just go, like they cooperate with inhalation, and with COVID, it's almost like the lung tissue themselves became rubbery, non-compliant, non-expansive. And even like early on in early COVID, I remember a really traumatizing intubation that I witnessed. And you know how like even all the way up into the bronchioles when you're trying to intubate someone, even that like was so rigid and
Tough.
non-compliant and just tough. And that's what makes COVID pneumonia different from just regular pneumonia. It's not even like your regular pneumonia with fluid inside the lungs or whatever. It's not even like that. But anyways, I think what I was saying is interesting is that every unit had to do that. Every unit in the hospital had to break away from what they were originally designed for. Like step-down units became extensions of ICU, and like your med-surg units became COVID. Like every unit was just like so far out of their scope, but this is what the need is right now, and so we just learned fast.
So eager to see like what is the need and what can I do, and like one of the things that that's always been said to me was operating at the top of your license. And I think sometimes as a profession we get trapped like, oh, I work in IMC, I'm at the top of my license. And like, no, there is an opportunity for your IMC to do more, for your critical care to do more. What can you do? So that was really a unique opportunity for people to truly operate at the top of their license and see, okay, how can we grow in this moment, and how can we meet the needs of a different client population and do something different. And so for neuro, we're so used to taking care of neuro patients. Like neuro and cardiac kind of go hand in hand. And so we do plenty of cardiac, not like the sickest of the sick cardiac, but plenty of cardiac. Not a ton of respiratory, unless it's like aspiration pneumonia, meaning like you've breathed fluid into your lungs. And for us to then have to transition to taking care of more pulmonary-based patients, those respiratory-based patients, forced us out of our comfort zone and forced us into learning something new. And then also just learning how to prone somebody, because like neuro, we don't want to touch you. We want to leave you alone. Like we'll come in and do neuro exams and stuff like that. But our sickest patients, if they're in an ICP crisis, I don't even want to blink in your direction. And you're telling me to go and take this unstable patient and flip them over? What is that? I don't even know what that's about. So that gave me personally a ton of anxiety the first time I did it, just because like also the control aspect of being an ICU nurse of like, but my lines were just so perfect.
My lines were perfect. What if and it takes so many people to even do something like proning a patient. But what I love about nurses and what I love about nursing is we were eager to do it. Like we did that shit. Like we wanted to get in there. I remember in the early 2020, like watching a YouTube tutorial in the middle of a nurse's station on proning somebody. And then we all just like picked who our roles we wanted to be and like get in there and just. And I know proning has been around for a while, but before COVID, it was generally like a last-ditch effort that you did, very, very rarely. And now, before you're even intubated, a lot of times we're just having the patients prone, we're turning them and all that stuff. And it's like, it's amazing how nursing across the board, every unit, every level in the hospital really like absolutely rose to the occasion of a pandemic.
Like one of my favorite things was we had ICU extenders. We had people from like peds and PICU come over and be like helping hands. Like our, runners, so that we didn't have to come in and out, in and out, in and out of rooms. And I got to learn a lot from them. They were so interesting. And I want to put a pin in this and come back to nursing stereotypes, because I want to talk to you about those, because some of them are really true. But the peds nurses were so chipper and friendly and helpful. But they're like, I don't do big people. I feel like I'm going to break them. I was like, I don't do tiny people because I'm definitely going to break them.
I'm going to drop.
But that was my favorite, because they were so ready to learn something new and like talk about being out of your comfort zone. Like they were like, I can do comfort therapy all day, but I have no idea what you're talking about. Like they were ready to come in with like chipper voices and cuter badge reels than I had ever seen in my life, and just like big smiles. And I'm like, no, We don't do that. They were like, why not? And I'm like, I mean,
Right.
technically grandma in that room, I like it. Like, she
Yeah.
might be into that.
Yeah.
But man, they fit the peds nursing stereotype, and I loved that. And it
Mhm.
reminded me that, like, oh, I can be chipper. Like,
Mhm.
I don't have to be so serious all
Yeah.
the time. Not that
That's-
I'm ever serious, but
Right, but that's so cool though.
yeah.
That's so cool. It is interesting, like how we kind of get in our little boxes of whatever specialty we do, and then you forget there's whole other nurses out there that are like mother baby.
Okay, so I have
What?
worked in the emergency room.
Yeah.
In women's, like GYN surgical. I've worked med telemetry, and I've worked ICU, and then I've worked neuro ICU. And out of all of those, ICU definitely like fits my like type A personality.
Mm-hmm.
But when I worked in women's and I would have to like float to mother baby, I'm sorry, I'm just not that person.
Me either.
I'm not like, I support you, but I'm proud of you, Mom. I'm so proud of you. No.
It makes me nervous. Like, I am more
Yes.
nervous in that unit than I am in a freaking code or literally anywhere else. Like,
If you give me somebody with an exploding brain, I'm like, yes, I know what to do, and I am here for it. But if you told me that Mom is like 10 centimeters and fully effaced and crowning, I'm going to cry. I just don't know what to do.
I kind of want to leave.
I would like to remove myself from this situation. Thanks.
Good luck.
What is she saying? Gone with the Wind? I don't know nothing about birth and no babies with Scarlett. Like, that is me.
It's funny. It's so funny. Generally, as a nurse, people ask me like 2 questions. Like, do you see a lot of people die? And I'm like, mm-hmm. Do you see a lot of people have babies? And I'm like,
No.
Mm-mm.
I've seen. Technically, I didn't see it. I heard it when I was working the ER. This was really sad. It's a sad moment. I think Mom and baby lived, but Mom had come in and she had overdosed. And OB came down and they were like, the baby needs to come out now, because Mom was like clearly laboring at the same time.
Wow.
And so it was just like this very chaotic moment. And it was just super quiet in the rest of the ER, which is
Rare.
And I think it was because everybody understood that this like super crazy thing was happening, and it was totally silent until we heard the baby cry. Yeah.
That's not what you want in the ER.
No.
That's not what you
But it
want
was
in
just
the
like such a cool like
Yeah.
moment.
Cool.
Are you good, bro?
I've been flying or something.
Oh, okay. Just wondering about this guy that you've got down here. You don't scare me. Let's go.
That was his sad face, actually.
Listen, I've got Aquaphor. I'll put that on instead of Vaseline. Square up.
Square up.
Square up. So yeah, tell me
Yeah.
about you.
I am.
Have we talked about you on this podcast yet? It's your podcast, technically.
I feel like I talk a lot. So right now I am in a hospital systems float pool.
Fun.
Yeah. And so I go to every unit, except for labor and delivery. And sometimes I do have to go to mother baby. And
Yikes.
it's been a long time though. I mean, it's been like before the pandemic.
Let me say, like, mother, baby, and labor and delivery nurses, dude, they are some badass bitches.
They don't fuck around.
They really don't fuck around.
Like, at all.
They are ready.
Yeah.
They are ready. And
Yeah.
Have you ever been on time to huddle? Because I sure haven't.
Mm-mm.
No, I'm not that person. Do you know who's probably on time to huddle all the time?
Mm-mm.
Labor and delivery.
Mhm.
Mother, baby. They are on time.
Yeah. And
I am not.
I feel like they even hold like a historical component of nursing, because like, nursing and midwifery have always kind of gone hand in hand historically. Like when I watch Call the Midwife, I'm like, this is where they started all this.
That's
like,
my favorite.
the World Health Organization defines the health of a nation by like mortality rates with mothers and stuff like that. It does play like a huge role, and it's just something that I barely like know anything about. But yeah, maybe I'll have a labor and delivery nurse on here at some point.
I think it would be interesting, like at some point, to have like different. Because what have you had so far?
ICU, ER, and then my first episode, I don't know if you heard it, was with Umu, and she's a psychiatric
I
mental
love
health nurse
Umu.
practitioner.
Oh,
I know.
God.
Isn't she?
I love Umu.
Umu, we love you if
I
you're
love
watching.
you, Umu. Heart hands. But I have chubby hands, so I won't do that.
Oh, it's okay.
I mean,
Kinda.
oh God.
So, yeah.
So let's talk about nursing stereotypes
Okay.
for a second.
Yeah.
I feel like I very much fit the ICU stereotype. My sister is an ER nurse, and I think it's funny that we were raised by the same parents, went to nursing school together,
I remember.
and then came out two different specialties.
Yeah.
And it just fits us both so well. Like,
the
we both are
specialties
that
that
person.
Generally kind of like go at each other. Like,
And she's easily my best friend.
Right.
Like, but it's interesting because it helps us have conversations about like where the other one is coming from. Like, as a neuro nurse, for the love of God, look in your patient's eyeballs. Look at their pupils. Do that. You can do it. And so I've lovingly said to her, do you do that? She's like, yes, God, yes, leave me alone. But for that reason, when I get report from the ER, I'm Gucci, man. I got it from here. You've had enough. You've probably been yelled at, had stuff thrown on you, and you've had some really dumb phone calls come to your phone. I got it from here.
Yeah.
I don't care what their skin looks like. I'll figure it out when they get up here.
I will look them over.
I am going to look them all the way over.
Right.
If you've ever been in the hospital, if you haven't been in the hospital, you'll find out. One day, you'll get admitted to the hospital and somebody's going to look at your booty hole.
All the way
I'm really
over.
sorry.
All the way over.
All the way over.
So, what do you think? Because, okay, so for me, like, I do both.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like when I'm getting ready for work, if I'm going to ICU.
Do you have to put a different hat on? Like,
yeah,
I'm
like
gonna be an ICU nurse,
even
I'm
mentally,
gonna be an ER
yes,
nurse,
like
yeah.
even mentally, it's like a little bit more intense for me. Like
Yeah.
if I'm going to ICU, it's like it is that more serious tone that
Yeah.
is like, okay, like I gotta make sure I don't miss anything. I gotta make like I'm like mentally preparing the whole time I'm getting dressed, the whole time I'm going to work. I'm like, all right, when I'm going to the ER, it's a different kind of mental preparation, almost in that, like, how could you possibly prepare for it?
You can't.
So why try? Like, it's like, if I thought of different scenarios, none of those scenarios would happen, and something else that I didn't think of would. So it's almost like I'm just going to show up and see what happens, kind of mindset.
That's all you can do, because in the ER, like, you just have to be ready for whatever is going to come through the door. And you could see 10 stomach pains back to back to back to back to back to back to back. And then the next person is a stomach pain and they code.
Right.
Like 10 stomach pains.
Abdominal pain is the highest mortality rate of chief complaints in the ER.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And generally, they're triaged at a level 3. I mean, you could have abdominal pain from needing to pass gas, or you could have abdominal pain because your aorta is dissecting.
Yeah.
Like, it's just such a
It's like how you qualify and quantify that.
Yeah. It's very hard to... So you think worst case scenario every time, every single time.
To.
You have to make a big deal out of the chief complaint every time. It could be something.
When you're getting ready for work, what's your, like, no matter where you're going that day, do you have something you always do before you go into work? Like, besides shower and eat breakfast and stuff like that?
Okay, I don't shower. I don't eat breakfast. It's terrible. I shower after work and then I...
Yeah. No, well, yeah. You got to wash off the people germs before you get into your own sheets.
It's a must.
The skin flakes.
The float after you took off somebody's socks.
The
they just
sputum.
Like, ugh.
Anyway, sorry.
It's okay. There's no.
Like, what's your routine? Like, you have to do this, otherwise you're not gonna have a good day.
Generally, the night before, I lay out my scrubs.
Yeah. I wish I was that person.
I just lay them out because the scrambling in the morning is not for me. I'm not really a morning person. I have coffee every morning, no matter what. Like, I'll be late before I don't have coffee.
Amen.
Like, I'm gonna have coffee.
Yes.
You want me late and caffeinated, then on time and not caffeinated. So,
yeah.
Other than that, nothing really specific. I lay out my scrubs in the morning and my bag that has my badge, my stethoscope, my goggles, all the things, and then in the morning it's just a matter of putting it on and
going,
leaving. Yeah.
Do you listen to anything on the drive in?
Oh.
I guess your commute is like 2 minutes. Though,
Literally 2 minutes from right now. But yes. The loudest, raunchiest gangster rap that you ever did here. I don't know. It just gets me pumped.
Yeah.
I would name a song, but I think I'll name it to you later.
Yeah. I want to see it.
Okay.
I want to see it. Same. Like I start off with a little bit because I am a millennial.
Mm-hmm.
My only preset on my radio is NPR. So I listen to NPR a little bit just because I want to see like what's going on in the world. But then I turn on.
Pin that because we have an NPR article to talk about. 200 members of Congress
are about to get molly-whopped by a bunch of nurses. And then I listen to like really obnoxious, hardcore, like either club music or hip hop, rap.
Yeah.
Like
yes.
I worship at the altar of Megan Thee Stallion.
Get out. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I know you do. I know you love her.
I love Megan Thee Stallion.
Blasphemy.
I was so offended when 2 years ago when my Spotify Wrapped came out and I shared like, do you know what Spotify Wrapped is?
Yeah.
Okay. You're just very cute and you had your head tilted. I was like, do you know what I'm talking about? So my Spotify Wrapped came out and I shared it to my Instagram story like a good Spotify user. Although this week they're trying me and
it's been a journey with Spotify.
It's been a journey this week. We're going to talk about that too.
This is on Spotify right now.
So she's, I guess at that point, Megan's music was listed, like her genre was listed as trap queen. And because I listened to so much music that was Megan Thee Stallion or similar to Megan Thee Stallion, my number one genre was trap queen. And a girl I went to high school with who's a music major and like, well, now is, graduated and works in like the music industry, but in like education, she was like, what is trap queen, like in my DMs? And I was
boy.
First of all,
so you've been a nurse in a global pandemic. Don't come for me.
Don't
in any way, shape, or form.
Like, don't. Okay. Like, I listen to plenty of other stuff too. Like, I listen to a lot of Broadway. I go to the Kennedy Center for fun. Like, let me have my Megan Thee Stallion. Okay.
Let me live.
Let me live my life.
You don't know what you would need driving into this shit every day. You don't know, okay?
Like, and some people, they need, like, soothing tones and, like, chill podcasts. I am not that person. I need to pretend that I am selling drugs so that when I go to work and I'm
legally giving drugs.
And I am legally giving drugs that were prescribed to patients for a reason by a physician that I have something to keep me going. I need that little like
just a flare
while I'm in front of the med machine.
I think for me, the psychology of it is like I need to feel more amped than the chaos that's coming at me could feel.
And that's like the caffeine and the music need to like crash into one another in my system and just get me like ready to go.
Because I gotta win.
The only way you can survive is going into it with a mentality of like, how do I come out of this day and come back to myself? You got to come back to yourself at the end of the day. You have to have that moment of like, this is going to sound really cheesy, but one of my chaplain friends is really going to appreciate this. You have to have that moment of centering yourself and like coming back to who you are at the end of the day and leaving that chaos behind.
Yeah.
That's how you survive. But speaking of chaos, let's talk about Senate right now. Let's talk about this NPR article. And let's just be clear.
I feel like, were they there when the whole doctor stethoscope thing happened and like the entire nursing profession? Like,
I don't know why people don't take nurses seriously. I would love to know because year after year after year, we get voted the most trusted profession every year for like 20 years. And every year for the past 20 years, people love to look at nurses and be like, but you're just too feminine and pretty to be paid what you're worth. And I don't know why a bunch of senators were like, you know what? A good idea is to cap how much they can get paid. You know what's a really great idea is to look nurses and teachers in the face and be like, nah, what is that?
Right.
Why?
Right. I think, I don't know, I can't speak for teachers, and I can't even imagine, like, teachers don't even get paid what nurses get paid.
Yeah, I lump us together because it happens at the same time.
It happens at the same time, and I mean, not to mention, there's so many male nurses now and obviously there's male teachers as well, but like, I think one of the reason nurses can't be as successful as they could be is because we don't really unite. We unite in really difficult moments, but we tend to, and we can kind of get into that with the whole new grad thing that you're talking about, baby nurses, but we tend to be more competitive of each other than we are supportive of each other. And so basically, once again, I am here on my podcast talking about how, the government is crying nursing shortage, which is just absolutely a false narrative. There's 4 million nurses in the United States. It's one of the largest professions. There are not a lot of nurses willing to be clinical bedside nurses in this nonsense, this absolute chaos, sadness. It's grief beyond belief. Like it's
super hard. And it's so terrible to say to people, like, you do one of the most difficult jobs there is to do, which is to bring people into this world, hold their hand while they're here, and help them gracefully exit, but you cannot get paid while you do it. That is so weird.
And so, because the healthcare system is basically such a system of capitalism, and a byproduct of capitalism, nurses have had this opportunity the last few years to take these travel contracts where they actually get paid what they're worth. And over 200 congressmen signed a petition to cap travel nurses' pay to try and keep nursing in low-paid staffing positions.
And there was even, I'm going to speak out of turn, and we can have June look it up when he comes back, but there was basically a restraining order somewhere in the Midwest recently where a judge ruled that nurses could not leave a particular health system to pick up travel contracts.
Yes.
They were slated to leave and go work travel contracts.
Wasn't the entire state of Texas kind of did that and for a while? I'm not sure what's going on there.
Well, they're in Texas, so there's that. Sorry.
Honestly, like it just absolutely blows up. One hospital system, several members of their cath lab team resigned. So this is nurses, technicians, whatever, gave their proper notice. And instead of countering them with an offer that they couldn't refuse as staff there, they went and hired lawyers and had a judge retain them so that they could phase them out appropriately while they figured out hiring other staff.
That's insane.
This is the absolute control measures that they will go to try and continue their money-making model of paying people who are at the bedside. And physicians at the bedside don't get paid that much money either.
They don't.
In comparison to what they're doing and in comparison to what they've spent on student loans and whatever. They've given up freaking 10 years of the best years of their life to be where they are. And the compensation is barely enough to pay off their loans and live a comfortable life. That doesn't even begin to touch the amount of responsibility that someone in those positions would feel, the amount of, just secondary trauma that you witness or even feel responsible for. Like, it's a lot.
Yeah, and I think it comes from insurance companies forcing hospitals to pay X amount of dollars, and then hospitals feeling trapped by that. And I think some hospital systems are waking up to that. Like, every once in a while I'll see on Twitter, like, here is one hospital system that said, I'm going to pay my nurses this amount of money. And if one hospital system can do it, I think a lot more hospital systems can do it.
Yeah.
But it's really frustrating to me to watch senators who have not been a nurse, who have not, congressmen, who have not worked in a hospital, legislate how much money we take home rather than legislating on insurance, which would solve the problem.
Right. That's where and hospital CEOs as well.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
They have productivity models to me, and you'll hear hospitals cry poor mouth a lot, like, oh, we live in a 1 to 3% margin of error. We don't have, the majority of hospitals budget is in staffing, and blah blah, or at least 50% of hospitals budgets are in staffing. And I'm just going, I remember like having this thought when I was a baby nurse, and I'd work the weekends, and I so often worked the weekends.
And that was just last year, right?
Exactly. I worked the weekends, and the amount of cars that are in the employee parking lot on a weekday versus on a weekend
so tiny.
Are so tiny, and yet the hospital runs seamlessly all throughout the weekend. And so I've always just kind of like been like, if there are unnecessary positions,
Mm-hmm.
they're not at the bedside. Because clinical staff show up 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I was hoping would happen with these travel nursing contracts and these is that it would flip the healthcare system upside down.
I think that's what everybody hoped.
And it would allocate the funds where they actually belong. Because at the end of the day, nobody suffers more from your nurse not being well paid, well staffed, well rounded, well rested, all the things. Nobody suffers more than the patient.
Yeah.
Nobody suffers more than the consumer.
Yeah.
And we have all these endless meetings about Press Ganey scores and just...
I will say, yes, and I agree with you. And it's super interesting. There was actually a TikTok I watched the other day of a patient who is trached and ventilator dependent and chronically ill.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about? This guy?
And
he's African American. He's really skinny. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know. I saw a guy similar, but we'll talk.
Yeah, and he talked about his experience being admitted to the hospital really recently. I don't think it was... I couldn't even tell you physically where he lives, but he was like, my respiratory therapist told me that they had a ratio of 1 respiratory therapist to 20 patients.
Yes.
That is crazy and not abnormal.
Not abnormal.
And he was like, how am I supposed to expect safety? And that's weird. And it's sad. And
the hospital solution to that would be, why are you telling the patient about your ratios?
Yeah.
How are they going to feel safe knowing that ratio?
But
they shouldn't feel safe.
Yeah. They should be allowed to ask those questions.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of patients who do ask those questions.
Right. Patients ask me all the time, how many patients do you have today?
Yeah. And they're like, I'm not your only patient. I'm like, when did you, whoever told you that you were going to be my only patient? What medical show are you watching? If I could abolish one thing from this universe, it would be medical shows for people who don't work in the medical field. They're so inaccurate.
Yeah. That's interesting. I thought you were going to say about this. I saw a guy that was trached, and he was on TikTok. He posted his own video.
Was it that he was in the ER and he had soiled himself?
Yeah, he had soiled himself. He's like, this is how busy they are. And he's like, I can hear how busy it is.
He was like, I can hear them coding someone. Right. That's what he said.
And I've been sitting in my own soil
for 2 hours. 2 hours. Or something like that, yeah.
And he's like, but I know that they're legitimately busy. And I loved him. Like, I was just like, wow, how profound of him to use that moment to advocate for us being able to help him.
And how dare we have to rely on patients to advocate for us?
Thank you.
They
are sick.
It is the antithesis of being a nurse.
Or sick. Like, it should not be hard to... Like, you're going to leave that hospital paying the most enormous bill of your life.
Yeah. And let me say this. I work in a place where I truly think leadership does listen. Like we said, we're not getting paid what we think we should get paid, and we've consistently gotten raises over the past couple of years. We've consistently had more money added to our paycheck. They have listened. There are people, lots of places in the United States, who do not have that privilege, who work for healthcare systems that still do not have PPE. They work in nursing homes.
It's unreal.
They work in doctor's offices. They work in hospitals that do not care about them
at all.
And so it's super frustrating to come from a place of, because we live in a financially wealthy area of the United States. And I think we're lucky for that reason. And there are people who go to work And they legitimately, like, med-surg nurses will have, like, 8 patients, 10 patients.
Yes.
And know that their patients are not getting the care that they need, the care that they deserve, and they still show up every day.
It's amazing to me. I mean, mortality rates increase 7% for every additional nurse, or for every additional patient your nurse has. What were we sorry, I have ADD. Oh, I said it was what it is.
Did you learn you have ADD from TikTok? Because I did.
I actually got a diagnosis, but it tipped me off to it. Yeah. It tipped me off, not from TikTok, from actually just like therapy pages.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I need to go get this checked out. Yeah.
We were talking about patient ratios and safe staffing, and we live in a very like privileged area, and patients shouldn't have to advocate for us. Like,
patients should not have to advocate for us. Not sure what I was gonna say.
Well, now's a great time to talk about a word from our sponsor. No, I'm just kidding.
One day.
June's like, we got a sponsor?
One day. What's wrong?
It stopped recording.
What?
Figure it out. We're good. I restarted it, but it'll be the same thing as last time.
At the 30-minute mark?
I don't know. Because you know why I left? The coffee.
I get you.
You know what I'm saying?
So, yeah. Patients advocating online while they're not getting care for nurses, that blows my mind.
That's the upside down right there.
That's the upside down. And I feel like another component of flipping the healthcare system over is nurses being united, but also, patients as a consumer being like, I'm not going to go to places where it's not safe for me to be. Like this whole entire, like, one respiratory to therapist to 120. I mean, respiratory doesn't have as much numbers in their profession,
ranks. Yeah, they don't,
and in their ranks as nurses do. And I always I see them, like, even knowing some of the people that I work with 3 years ago, what they even look like then to what they look like now.
Oh gosh,
it's like when you talk about, like, when you see someone coming in sworn into being the president, and then 4 years later how aged they are. That's how I feel like the respiratory therapists look.
Yeah. And I'm sure plenty of nurses too.
And like the front lines and the headlines are always nursing, and I get it, but like I have a huge heart to advocate for respiratory as well, because they've seen and witnessed the same thing that we have, and they have been way more outnumbered than we ever have.
My sincere hope is that in the coming years, when nurses, respiratory therapists, medical professionals in general are portrayed in the media, it's a much more accurate, honest representation of what we truly do. Because like, if you look at TV shows now, like my top 3 TV shows in order are ER, Scrubs, and then Grey's Anatomy. I don't enjoy Grey's Anatomy. Like, it's fun. It's fine. It's just, it's too dramatic. Like, your doctors are not getting you out of bed. No doctors are ever doing that. Like, let's be really real, okay?
Your doctor's not coming in to help you walk around today.
And for that reason, like, of those 3 shows, their popularity is the inverse of that list. It's Grey's Anatomy, it's Scrubs, and then it's ER. And so people watch Grey's Anatomy and they think that's the reality. They watch that show called The Resident and they think that's reality.
Or House.
And they think that nurses are just clerical, or like the main character on The Resident, who's a nurse, she just walks around with an iPad all day. What? That's not a thing. Well, like, that's just not an accurate representation.
Really,
or they're
not.
like sitting somewhere. No, we're not.
I leave work in pain, in actual physical pain.
Yeah.
Not just like, scratch the emotional, whatever. Like, we run for 12 hours at a time, lifting, turning, pulling. that's one tiny component of it. And then if you're in CCU, basically you're running algorithms and protocols that were initiated by a doctor, but then you're making those decisions. Yeah. You're making those calls. If the potassium's this, I'm going to do this. If it's that, then I'm going to do this. Yeah. If the sodium's here, then okay, if it's too low, I'm going to order 3%, but then I'm not going to, like, you're making all of these judgment calls based on protocols. Yeah. And there's, if you run into a question, you can call a doctor, but it's not like...
And they're going to say, what's the protocol say?
They're going to say, oh, well, I ordered the protocol. I ordered the protocol.
And that's because they're getting calls about 40 patients.
Right.
It's not for lack of caring. It's that, like, of the things that are happening right now, can you please follow the protocol until I have a chance to come up there and physically put eyes on this patient?
But who created these protocols? Healthcare systems, to be able to recede even further the amount of people that would need to be involved in bedside care. Yeah. So if this doctor can now see 20 patients as opposed to 10,
they can see 40.
Yeah. If they can see, if they can put 30 people on their service, throw a med student
into the mix.
You can get 60, baby. Yeah. you're up there.
Let's go.
Yeah. And we're the last line of defense at the bedside. They talk about that cheese, whatever.
It's the Swiss cheese model. That's one of my favorites.
And we're the last person at the end of the Swiss cheese model where, like, you feel the weight of that responsibility.
Okay, this is a great segue. So let's talk about baby nurses and how we raise baby nurses. Okay. Because I have an interesting point. You say, like, feeling the weight. I'm at a position in my career now where I get to help raise baby nurses. And I think you start raising baby nurses the moment you become a nurse.
Because they look up to you. It's an automatic thing.
It's an automatic thing. Like, student nurses in the hospital with those big bright eyes and super high ponytail. Yeah. Oh, they're ready, man, with their monograms and everything else.
Love them.
God love them. I had one recently tell me, I feel the weight now. I feel the responsibility. Like, it just kind of hit me. I'm like, there you go. Like, now you're in it. Now your head's in the game. Because they get so much information thrown at them in school and then so much information thrown at them when they start their job that it truly takes, like, a shift. Like, one bad shift is what it takes to, like, really drive that home. And I remember a couple of people's shifts, like, being present for, like, now she knows what time it is. Like, now they understand, like, what we're talking about when we say that you are the last line of defense and you are this person's advocate.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's so important that we, even though right now is hard to be a nurse, probably one of the hardest times in history to be a nurse, but I think we have to really focus on how do we make it better for the nurses that are here now, but also the nurses that are going to come behind us, because they're still coming.
Yeah. That's such a good point. The nurses that are going to come behind us. Because it's so hard to advocate thoroughly for 7 people.
Yeah, absolutely.
At a time. And so we've got to be both. We have to be both present at our jobs and do the absolute best we can. But we also have to be advocates for our profession and the future of our profession in that we cannot allow this to continue or get worse. Yeah. Because it's like every time they realize that, oh, they could take 5 patients. Oh, they could take 6 patients. We're going to flex up to 6, but only sometimes if we have to. Then 6 is the new normal. We're going to flex up to 7, but only sometimes. Then 7 is the new normal. Yeah. And you've got these, like, med-surg units now. Most hospital systems are going to these models where it's like a hodgepodge of, like, you could have a bariatric patient in one place, and then you could have AFib with RVR in another, and you could have
ortho-onc, med-tele, all in kind of one
everything
place.
Is in one place. And so,
which is hard because you want people who work in those specialties to be taking care of you. Like, we joke a lot about nursing alphabet soup, and I want someone who has the alphabet soup for where I'm at.
Yes.
I want that alphabet soup. I want to see it.
It's like they're forcing us into this jack of all trades, master of none type nursing, just but just check out the protocols for the XYZ and then you should be fine. But that doesn't help the patient.
It doesn't.
When you're an expert in an area and you know something very specific to that thing, you know, like something is wrong when this thing happens. Yeah. Whereas if I'm not a nurse that does that every day, I'm not going to pick up on that. Yeah. I'm not going to realize that that's abnormal. And the patient pays the price.
Which is why when I talk to like people who want to be a nurse or like, do you get this? Your mom's friends will call you or somebody will call you. Hey, you're a nurse and my friend's daughter is thinking about going to nursing school. Could you talk to her? Like she has some questions. I love being that person. I will take that phone call. If you call me 10 times in one day, I will take that phone call 10 times. I love being that person. I genuinely love teaching. And that's
that's awesome. I love you because I'm not like that. I'm like, person. Tell her I said don't do it. Okay, thanks, bye.
Well, I make the joke and then I'm like, no, but seriously. Go work for health systems that don't do that. Go work for a health system. Like if you know that you live in X, Y, and Z place and there are 3 health systems, go on LinkedIn, go on Instagram, go on Facebook, look up that employer and you can see who lists that employer and they work there and just shoot them a DM or like,
hey,
go and call and talk to their recruiter or go and ask your nursing school if they can reach out to people and say, what is it truly like to work there? What kind of resources do you have? Like I've done so many interviews over the last 6 months hiring new grad nurses. And you can tell what schools are really preparing their students for an interview because they will come and say, what is your onboarding like? And is there a possibility to extend that?
Yeah.
And what's my safety net? What's your staffing like?
Yeah.
What are my opportunities for professional development?
Yeah.
Those are the questions you need to be asking because if you're going to a place that is not focused on your professional development, is not focused on your staffing ratios, and is not focused on how they onboard you as a nurse, don't work there.
Don't work there. And I think healthcare systems are like crapping their pants because for so long the narrative was like, you're a new grad, what would you have to offer? And we were just so excited to get that first job out of school. And now it's like nurses are coming to the table like...
They're the consumer.
Like, I'm the value here. What do you have for me? Like, you can't run this place without me. Like, and that's how nurses need to show up. Like, you literally cannot continue without us. So when I show up to the table and we're negotiating, I'm the negotiator, not you.
I'm the captain now.
Look at me.
Look at me. I'm the captain now. What's my professional development like?
Yeah. How does this behoove me to be here?
Yeah. What do I gain from working for you? And those are the people I know. I'm like, I want that person because their head is in the right place. The people who are willing to let the interview happen to them, not for them.
Come on.
You gotta the interview is about you, baby.
All right,
and make it work for you.
This one's free. Take that same energy and advice and apply that to your dating life. When you're sitting across the table from that man or woman, you're not to be sitting there thinking about, oh, I wonder if they like me.
No.
You need to sit there and think about, I wonder if I like them. How do I feel in this moment? How does this interaction feel to me? And that's the same. That's just being a powerful person in general and owning your power.
Do not let life wash over you.
Exactly. And not getting into things and into situations that you'll regret later that want to use you. Situations that use you. Yeah.
Like I said to somebody the other night, she said, I don't know, I just feel like this guy is playing games. I was like, if you think he's playing games,
why are you still playing him? Yeah.
He is. If you think he is, he is. If you think they are, they are.
Yeah.
They are. They will tell you. They will tell you exactly how they feel. Even if they aren't saying it with words, they will tell you exactly how they feel. And if one more dude on a dating app says, you can be my nurse anytime, I will come and find you. Don't do that.
It's not cute. We don't think that's cute.
It is not cute. You want to turn me on? Tell me I can stop working. Don't say I need to work for you.
Come on.
Dumb pickup line is that? I get that so much.
You could be my nurse any day. Yeah, because that's what I want to do.
Were you a sexy nurse for Halloween? First of all, no.
No, I was actually
Second of all, I was actually at my job. And there ain't nothing sexy. Can I see a picture of you in your scrubs? Do people ask you that?
Yes.
Why do you want to see that?
What is that about? Send me. I heard all nurses wear tight scrubs. Can you send me a picture? No,
dude.
No.
Or they'll be like, I heard all nurses are freaks.
What are these? You know,
We
should have a whole episode on nursing misconceptions.
I would, first of all, can I
First
come
of all,
back?
all nurses are, yes.
I have a list.
I think all nurses are absolutely hilarious, and we have a
Yes.
certain flair and kind of
You have
comical
to be.
humor. But
You have to be.
yeah,
But nurses who are single, they bring the spice.
They
Like
do.
nurses
I
who
love them.
date, they bring the spice because man, I get the most attention about my dating life when I'm hanging out with nurses who've
Same.
never dated or they've never dated in the era of dating apps. Like they love
We
to
just- we
take
eat
my
that.
phone and swipe. They're like, "Oh my god." I'm like, "Do not. His hairline is not appropriate.
we're not. It's not a.
His hairline needs to be lower for him to speak to me." I'm kidding. I would never judge
These
you
are
on your
jokes.
hairline.
These are kind of jokes. Every joke has like 50% truth. Yeah. Okay, what were we talking about before dating? Oh, interviews. Being ready.
Interviews and like growing baby nurses and like how do we grow? And I think truly the best way for us to advance as a profession is to acknowledge that we're a profession. I think, and this comes from personal experience, I struggled with professional development because it's hard to view our professional development in the same arena as professional development as our peers. A lot of my peers who do not work in healthcare work in like corporate America. And professional development is a little different for them. Like for our friends that work in IT, it's getting new certificates that mean that you can do new things. And for us, if we were to go and do that, that's like becoming a nurse practitioner. That's the comparison. But that's not the same playing field. For us, it's like getting your CCRN or your SCRN or your, what is it for the ER? It's like TCN or something like that.
TNCC is
Thank
the
you.
trauma core, and then
Yeah.
like there's an ER one as well.
Yeah. And so I struggled with viewing that professional development as meaning I was a good nurse. Because to me, what makes you a good nurse is the care that you provide at the bedside, being clinically advanced, but also, did you wash your patient's face today? Like, did you do something for your patient
Yes.
that not just clinically improved their quality of life, but like, did you give them that moment of like intentional humanity?
Yeah.
Acknowledging their humanity. And
Right.
for a ventilated patient who cannot talk to you, washing their face is everything.
It's
It's everything.
Making
Brushing their
sure
hair.
They don't have wrinkles under them. I can't even imagine being in a situation where and there's so many good books like The Silent Patient and you know talk about people
Brain on Fire is a good one.
people who've experienced these who've had these stays in ICU where you know they heard things and they felt things and there was just this little cramp up under their side for 9 hours when nobody turned them
nobody knew.
and you know putting yourself in your patient's position is not something that you can teach in nursing school or you can and it's seen and felt and I noticed something recently. I'm always thinking when I'm at work, like I noticed the times where I kind of like rally a tech and another nurse may be like, hey, you know, this patient's just really in a slump. Let's just go in, change your sheets, pull her up, and just kind of
Get them fresh.
just get them fresh. And okay, sometimes in doing that, it's like it rejuvenates the patient. But I noticed even the other staff members in the room, they're like, they get a certain satisfaction.
They
out
like
of that.
take a deep breath of like a
wow,
sigh of relief, like, oh, she looks so good.
Yeah, and you take pride in your work, and it's those kind of things that really get missed when you don't have the time to do them, when you're not afforded the time to do them, and that's that's where patients are unhappy. Like, you can talk about Press Ganey scores all day, but like that human touch and that human like acknowledgement of like, you had eye crusties in your eye. Like, yes, I know how to hang 16 drips. I know which ones are compatible. I know what's not. I know how to keep you alive.
Yeah.
Yes, we're very clinically competent.
But somebody took the time to sit down and feed me my lunch when I couldn't use my hands. And that's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
And that's why I struggled with professional development, because to me, that is not what professional development is. Like, if I'm going to professionally develop, it means I'm going to get my rhythm down, my patient care down to a point where I can do that for every patient.
Right.
And once I started to be able to do that and professionally develop and grow in my role, and I realized that like it's how we teach new nurses to do that. And the way that we'll advance and the way that we will be recognized as a force to be dealt with, a force to be reckoned with, is how we teach baby nurses, new nurses, to do both.
Yeah. It kind of, this might be cheesy, but it's passing down the love of our profession. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, our profession is loving patients well.
That's where it came from.
It's literally loving patients well, holistically, in every way. It's like you are in a position where you literally cannot even be alive for yourself. And I know how to do that clinically. I'm smart there, whatever. We're, as a profession, we're right there. We're on the ball. But like those little things, those little moments of just the extra care, the extra love, and then, modeling that to the next generation. It's how we preserve, I think, our profession.
It's how we preserve and how we grow.
And it keeps me humble too. Because at the end of the day, like, we can know all this stuff clinically, but those moments are the reward.
Best.
It's like, that's why I became a nurse. Like, that's why I became a nurse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew that military service wasn't right for me. And I knew that I wanted to do something that left the world better than I found it. I wanted to live in the service of others. And this was my way of doing that. This was my way of being able to live in the service of others. And that's what I try to do, because I get to do it for patients and I get to do it for other nurses. I get to go to work and try and make things better for other nurses. For the nurses that are here and the nurses that are still to come, and the nurses that are in kindergarten right now that don't know that they're nurses yet. I went with a friend Friday morning. His daughter's school, the teachers needed some help learning how to swab the students. I guess they had a school nurse that was doing it. I don't know. I don't know the whole story, but and his daughter's in the toddler class. And so he couldn't go in there and swab the toddlers, because if she saw him, she would want to go home. So he did the bigger kid class, and I got to do the toddler class. And all of them were champs, because it's just, a little tickle, 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 tickle. They were champs, but there were 2 criers. And these are like 2-year-olds, 2 criers. Yeah. And one of them freaked out, traumatized. Poor thing. I guess she had recently had COVID, so she'd really gone through it. And then another one was just like kind of stranger danger. And one of the other little girls came up and was like patting her on the back, like came over to where we were swabbing her, and like just instinctively came over to take care of her friend. And I was like,
that's a nurse right there.
That's a nurse right there. She don't know it yet, but she's going to grow up and be a nurse. And I think I've thought about her every day since. Like, that's who we have to do this for right now. Yeah. We have to make it better for those little boys and girls who are going to grow up and be nurses and residents. And
I love that.
And take care of these patients.
I love that. And we talk about this every single podcast. We get into how this profession is more than a career. Doctors don't spend the first 10 years of their adult life because they just felt like being a doctor one day. No. Like, you feel deeply called to this. Yeah. You feel deeply aligned in your purpose with this. And I love that about us. I absolutely adore that about us. And that's why when we get around each other, we click, because we're like-minded, we're the same. There's something intrinsically inside of us that, like, this thing in me understands this thing in you. And yet it is that same heart and mindset that has made us very exploitable to the healthcare system.
Amen.
And they have played on our psychology, and they have, thrown us just kind of, it's like me and Elena talked about it last time, like it's almost like a narcissistic relationship. They kind of have breadcrumbed us along. Here's a pizza party. Here's a t-shirt that says you're a hero. Here's this, here's that. And it plays into the psychology of like, yeah, this is my purpose. This is why I was created. And it makes us exploitable. And I feel like it's a balance of preserving this very loving side of us, ourselves, but also coming alive to this other side that's like, hey, for the protection of this very sacred and beautiful thing, I cannot allow this to continue. Yeah. Because there are going to be people that come after me. And me, I'm important. My overall well-being is important. My savings is important. Me being able to pay for my kids to go to college is important. Me not just scraping by on this nursing salary is important. Same thing for like RT, like even like PT, OT, like
everybody.
Let's talk about physical therapy and occupational therapy.
Housekeeping.
Thank you. Environmental services are on the front lines.
Dude, transporters, housekeeping, those people show up and show out. Housekeeping keeps me alive.
They do. They literally do. And they're exposed just in the same way that we are. Like, you've got these, 18, 19-year-old kids pushing bodies to the morgues. Like,
dude,
that's saying something. And they're getting paid what? Like, I don't know.
$15.
$15,
I don't know. I started as a CNA making $15.
Right.
It was less than that, actually.
It was less than, I remember when I first started, it was like $12.80 something.
I made more in food service than I did as a CNA.
Yeah. Technicians. Nursing technicians. I could do a whole freaking month on them. Because I started as a CNA.
And you have to grow them too.
Yeah.
You have to grow them too.
And they also see the same trauma. They also see the same things. They are that extension of like cleaning the face, the humanity extension. And their position is just so valuable.
I don't know how we would get by without them.
I was just about to say
every day.
Couldn't live without them.
Like I think
when you show up and they're like, "Oh, you don't have a tech today?" That's the worst freaking day. You're just like,
fuck my life.
I want to leave. Like, I'd like to go now.
I would rather yeet myself off of a helipad than work without a clin tech.
Literally.
Yeah.
That's how much of a difference they make. And to the patients as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's talk about something lighthearted for a little while. Because we've been very serious and I want to know. So let's talk about exploitation as nurses. If you could reverse it, if you could exploit and get anything you wanted that was always available for nurses, like on the nurses station. So as an exercise to de-stress a while ago, a friend of mine and I were working on, if we had no budget and we could ask for anything we wanted.
At the nurses
station or like in the break room, what would we want? And specifically, we asked for a soda fountain that was one side Diet Coke, one side Monster Energy. And it was always stocked and filled with the good ice. What would you exploit? Like, what would you ask for if you could exploit back?
I'm always going to say a better nurse to patient ratio.
No, that's a given. Like, you're getting that. This is the silly stuff. You've gotten all the good stuff. You've gotten better nurse to patient ratios.
You're not like ridiculously exhausted.
Yes.
I'm thinking like
you're getting hour lunch breaks.
Okay.
You're getting hour lunch. Like you're doing
nap times.
Okay. Pretend you work in California. Pretend you work in California.
Okay.
And that's like the bar. So you can do anything you want. You've already got California nursing.
I need a nap.
Yeah.
I want a nap. I want like a fluffy bed.
A nap pod.
A little napping pod. Massage therapist on the unit.
God, that's such a good idea.
Yeah, massage.
We have
therapist.
A travel nurse who used to be a massage therapist, and every once in a while I'm like, "Hey, come on,
you know you want to." I'm like, I will literally pay you. Like if it's an issue, like I'll pay you.
Yeah, I will pay you. If you could only eat one thing on your shift at work, what would you eat?
Tacos.
Oh, that's a good answer.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is always French fries.
Really?
Yeah. Always French fries.
We have these really good tater tots in the morning.
Ooh.
You know, like people make biscuits and gravy. This is what I do.
I want gravy on tater tots.
That's what I do. With also the biscuit.
Yeah, no,
It's
the
just
biscuit is the side.
Carb on top of
The
a carb.
biscuit is a side.
With gravy on top.
No,
Yeah.
you go to McDonald's on the drive home from night shift and you get an egg McMuffin, but you put the hash brown in the sandwich.
Oh. That's a good idea. It's just like your carbs inside your carbs.
Well, I've been fat for a minute, so you really got to hang out with the fat kids sometime because we be eating, we be hungry.
I'm like, I feel hungry and tired and I need a shower.
Yeah, so what's the quickest way I can get this food in my mouth? It's to make it all into one sandwich.
I'm like the opposite. I'm like, I'm just going to go to bed hungry and deal with it in the morning.
I
so
will.
bad. And then I wake up hungry in the
No.
night. It's dumb. It's very dumb.
I'd rather go to bed dirty and change my sheets later than go to bed hungry. I will die on that hill.
That's fine. It's fun. We all have our things.
What's your nursing pet peeve?
So many. Okay.
June's having a moment. Are you good? Or are you having a seizure?
I figured it out.
Okay.
I don't know why, because I feel like this could actually be a real thing, but it makes me want to just walk out of the patient's room
Okay.
when I take a temperature
Yeah.
and it's like 97.8 and they're like, that's actually a fever with me
Oh,
because my
God.
normal temperature is usually like 95. I'm like, no, it isn't, because 95 is not compatible with life. Like, no, it isn't. Stop talking, please. When it's not a fever, but the patient is trying to tell me that's actually a fever for me, I want to leave. I'm like, I gotta go.
The rage that is coursing through my body right now.
Why do people do this?
No, this is one of my favorites. This is an ER story. We're going to take it way back to the beginning. So when I used to work in the ER, the ambulance bay would drop off and you would have to walk by several patient rooms to get to the trauma room to take a code, and they were coding this particular patient.
Yes.
And patients who see that it's busy and still think that they are the only person to have ever graced this emergency room. So this patient was wheeled by on a stretcher, and they had the Lucas machine. And for the uninitiated, the Lucas machine straps to your
compression
chest, and it gives you compressions. And I can still see this woman in my head. She like watches them, like literally watches them wheel down the hallway and goes, I know you have someone dying here, but I need my discharge papers and a Coke. And I was like, you are going to have to wait, because I now officially no longer care. Like, if somebody needed my attention more, it's not you.
See, and it's so hard. Those moments are so hard because the expectation for nurses to not be human while they're on their job. I am so petty. Like, I'd be like, what? Did you guys hear something? I didn't hear anything. Like, I just my reaction
Just
to
the
stuff
rage.
like that is just like, now you're going to wait an hour or two.
Yeah.
Whatever I feel
You're
like.
going to get your discharge papers, but you're going to get no Coke. You're going to get a Diet Shasta. Like, I technically brought you a soda, but it is not the one that you wanted. Like, I love
Here's your
patients.
Diet
I would
ginger ale.
do anything for some patient. Like,
Right.
I will do anything for you. But the moment you take advantage of a situation where you know someone else is physically dying to yell about wanting a Coke, that's when I have an issue.
Yeah.
I have done so much stuff for patients that is beyond the call.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond the call.
And we all do.
We all do. But the moment you start yelling at me,
The
I'm
moment
done.
you're well enough to not have to be there and you're entitled, it's like it's very yeah. It's very hard to keep my compassion on for that.
but when
There's nothing to
patients
be
bring us
compassionate
stuff, I'm
about.
like, please don't. You don't have to do that, but I am going to eat it, but please don't.
So I'm really not supposed to be accepting
Gifts, but if you're gonna bring us donuts for the
peach
whole year,
milkshakes from Chick-fil-A. If you're going, I'm not supposed to be accepting those, but like if you're going.
Okay, but let me tell you, recently when my dad was admitted to the
Yes,
hospital,
I wanted to talk about this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
By all means, let's talk about it. I brought hella donuts because I know what time it is, and he paid for it because it was his fault. Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to talk about it from the beginning? Okay.
Yeah. So walk me through being on the other side.
10 out of 10, do not recommend.
Okay.
So what happened was my dad, who's normally healthy, active guy, has had a seizure disorder for most of my adult life. He started.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. It doesn't really affect his like day-to-day life. And if you know my dad, he'll talk to you about it. Like it's not a big deal, but he started having seizures. I guess I was either just finishing up high school or right after high school. And he started seeing a neurologist and they put him on Tegretol. And they never really, he did a couple of EEG studies and they couldn't really pinpoint what was causing the seizures other than it was likely related to hypoxia brought on by sleep apnea.
Oh, okay.
But taking Tegretol stopped the seizures from happening. So he's taken Tegretol basically since then. I can remember one instance a couple years, like maybe 5 years into him being diagnosed, that he didn't take his meds while we were on vacation and he was fine. And the day we came back from vacation, he had a seizure. We went to the ER. He restarted his meds. He was fine. He came home. So I live with my parents, and the day after Thanksgiving, it was Friday night. It was like 10 p.m.-ish. I was in my office, which is like catty corner to their bedroom. And I heard like a coughing, gagging sound. And I was like, is that my dog? Like, is that one of the cats? Like, whatever. And then I hear my mom shout for me. And I run in the room and he's having a seizure. He seized, and this is my wheelhouse. I live here in neuro ICU. Seizures all day.
Right.
So my dad's not a small guy, and he has a history of being a little aggressive when he's postictal. So did what I knew how to do, which was keep an eye on him, call 911 for backup, just see how it goes. He seized for about 1.5 minutes and 2 minutes, and then he went blue, apneic, and floppy.
Okay.
I checked for a pulse in all of the places I know how to check for pulse. Could not find one, and didn't hesitate and just
Jumped on
threw the
chest.
phone. I can like remember in one motion, like threw the phone to my mom across the bed, started doing CPR and kicked her out of the room. And not a fun time. I remember yelling at my dad. And I remember, I think I slapped him one time to see if like, because in that moment it's your dad, like you'll do anything. And I'm like doing CPR and it's on a bed, but I'm trying to do like really high quality CPR. I'm trying to do it the best way I know how. And it's that weird moment of, and if you've ever done CPR and they're not bagged and they're not intubated, that exhalation of air, and I can still see his face like blue. Yeah, it's rough, but it gets better. It gets better. I promise. This is the hard part. I did CPR for maybe 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, and he just kind of like stiffened up and took a big breath. So I sat back because I was fully sitting on him. I sat back and he started breathing. So I yelled to my mom, okay, he's breathing. And at that point, EMS was like kind of getting ready to pull into our neighborhood. And I rolled him on his right side because breathing sounded terrible. And but he was breathing. I could keep my finger on his radial pulse while I had him on his side. And he started to come to. Like he started to want to sit up and get out of bed. And I'm like,
Whoa, buddy.
Hold on.
Whoa, Nelly.
Whoa, Nelly. Let's just take a beat here. So EMS comes in, and this is where the story gets a little frustrating. And I said, I'm an ICU nurse. I told them what happened. I said, I don't know why he had a seizure. He takes Tegretol daily. He lost a pulse. I coded him myself. I got ROSC. Now you're here.
Here we are.
I don't think that they believed me, which is hard. And I don't think that the physician at that hospital believed me, which was also hard. He was up and walking around at that point. They wanted him to get dressed. They wanted to check a blood sugar, which I respect that. I had to check the blood sugar. I had to like follow him around because he was like, lights on, but no one's home. So I had to be like, Gary, like grab him by the shoulders. Gary, check his blood sugar. His blood sugar was fine. I had to convince the EMS squad, like, he doesn't need clothes. Like, he was in his underwear because he was sleeping. He doesn't need clothes. He needs a blanket and to go to the hospital. I will follow you with clothes. Mr. Brown, do you want to put a coat on? He doesn't need a coat. I need you to put him in an ambulance and take him to the hospital.
Wow.
They didn't start an IV. They didn't put him on a life pack. Nothing. By the time I like get my mom situated, I actually was also able to call my sister who used to work at that hospital. She works at another hospital now. Call her and say, hey, call them, tell them we're coming. And get my mom situated. And I knew that they were only going to let one of us back there. So I was like, I'll go. I called somebody else to come and sit with my mom because she just watched me do CPR on her husband.
And if you guys know her, Katy, or her parents, the love that her parents share is just unmatched.
Today's their 36th wedding anniversary.
Oh,
I know.
Gosh.
And so got everybody situated, got up to the hospital, forgot to bring clothes. And by the time I got up there, he was awake, talking to the physician, and was able to admit that he had not taken his meds in a while. Because he felt like his neurologist was being, quote, wishy-washy, end quote. We've now seen the error of our ways. It was really hard being on the other side of it at that hospital because you know just enough to be dangerous. You know just enough to know how badly this can go. So he was on a monitor. He didn't get an IV for an hour, which was frustrating to me because my head was, well, what if something happens?
What if he seizes again? He just was not living, and now he
fun
is.
fact, 15 minutes after he got the IV, he had another seizure.
Wow.
So I got to watch him do that twice in one night. He ultimately he had some elevated cardiac enzymes and some ST depression.
Could have been the compressions.
Yeah, and that's what I figured. I asked for a head CT. It was negative. And they said, let's load him up with some Keppra. Let's get him admitted. That hospital didn't have any beds, so he ultimately went to a different hospital and got meds, got cleared by neuro, got cleared by cards, and is now back to taking his meds. My mom watches him take them every day, and we have since seen the error of our ways. It took him about 2 weeks to kind of get back to his like 100% self.
Wow.
And he wanted to go back to work the next day because this happened Friday night. He was admitted Saturday, discharged Sunday. And Sunday night when I brought him home, he was like, I want to go back to work tomorrow. I was like, I want to admit you to a psych ward. Like, you've lost your, like, I don't know if you've met me, but no, this ain't happening.
Right.
I was able to keep him home from one day. And I was like, dude, I was just on top of your chest. Do you maybe want to take a break? But no.
Do you know what I went through?
Do you know what I went through? So it was really frustrating.
Yeah.
And I still like, it took me a couple of weeks to really deal with those emotions and really deal with that. Like, and I still deal with it every day. Like I hear him snoring and I have to like check and make sure he's snoring.
Wow.
Yeah. But it was the first like 2 weeks he was home after that, he would sneeze. If he would sneeze, he would go, oh, because his chest hurt.
That's how you know you did it right.
And that's how you know you did it right. And I like sort of felt bad, but I was like, yeah, if you had taken your medicine, you wouldn't have this problem. So it was really hard, but it's nobody really prepares you to parent your parents.
No.
And that's kind of what I'm dealing with at the moment.
Yeah.
But
so like your biggest takeaway for being a family member of a patient.
We don't communicate enough. I had to beg people to talk to me, beg doctors to talk to me. And I know exactly what to say.
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly what to say to get somebody. I can make one phone call and risk management will be here.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't have to beg you to talk to me.
Right. And for people that don't have an insider perspective like you, they're calling, they're trying to get information about their loved one. They're desperate. They're worried. All the visitor restrictions have been in place for like 2 years. Like you can't, that's another inaccuracy of medical shows. You can't go to the bedside and this doctor just lays everything out for you and explains everything. It's like, it really should, but once again, it all goes back to short staffing. Like a physician can't be in touch with 40 different families.
His
in a day.
primary nurse that night was a travel nurse whose original specialty was hospice.
Wow.
In the emergency room.
Department. Yeah.
And so she was his primary nurse. And thank God that I called my sister and had the wherewithal to say, call them and tell them that it's your dad. Because then the charge nurse was able to like also be a help. But like, it wasn't a help. Like, she facilitated certainly, but she came in and was like looking at his monitor and like printed out a 12 lead. And he was definitely having some interesting rhythms, but I'm not in the headspace to interpret my own dad's 12 lead.
Right.
But she had this like weird look on her face. And I was like, what do you see? What's going on? She was like, I'll be right back. And like winked at me. I'm like, don't fucking wink at me right now. Do not fucking wink at me.
Yeah.
It was awful.
Like, I'm terrified. Like, I just resuscitated my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And like when I was telling the ER doctor the story, he kept stopping me and I'm like, can you let me finish? Like, I need to get this out. Like, I need to tell you this from beginning to end. And I said, so I checked for a pulse, and he goes, well, where did you check? And I was like, I told him, like, radial, femoral. And he goes, well, why did you check there? I'm like, because I'm an ICU nurse. And he goes, oh, so you would know. I was like, I will go to jail.
Yeah.
I will go to jail. Like, please give me one really good reason.
Say something else.
Say something else. I grew up on Biggie and Tupac. I will go to jail.
And that's the other like aspect too, like the medical community. Like, we can't even trust each other anymore.
Yeah.
The moment that I'm not in scrubs at work with you, I'm on the other side of it.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
What?
And it sucks because I had to put that frustration aside and be my dad's advocate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he couldn't advocate for himself.
Yeah. That's crazy. It's 9 p.m. That's also crazy.
This was great.
It was great.
Let's do some takeaways. Do you want to do some top 5 takeaways?
How
do you normally wrap this up?
We seriously.
You just wrap it up?
So chaotically.
1, let's start with this. 1, vote better. Vote for people who support nurses.
I don't believe in politics at all. I think it's bullshit on both sides.
That's why you got to believe in it. That's why you got to vote, baby.
I don't.
I know. You need to. We're going to work on it.
Okay. Don't come for me, Patriots. Okay? Don't freaking come for me. I don't vote. There's nothing that you're going to say in my DMs that's going to change that.
Yeah. The only time you can come into my DMs is if you're going to be sending me money.
Yes.
And like I said, my Venmo is in my bio. Let's get real.
Let's get real. And I will send foot photos if need be. That's probably takeaway too. Like, it's totally fine to have whatever fetishes you want to have.
Yeah, we don't kink shame in this house.
We don't kink shame, but we do charge. Can
you please? I will pay you money to make that the title of this episode. We don't kink shame, but we do charge. 3, if you're on
how much money?
Yeah, how much money? We can talk about price plans offline. Okay.
Okay, fine.
I've got a pricing structure.
Okay.
If you're gonna hit on a nurse on a dating app, She's not your nurse. Are you good?
He's fine.
Okay. I'm worried about him.
You don't want to see us in scrubs. There's
You
COVID
don't
on
wanna
those
see it.
scrubs.
There's COVID.
There's blood on those scrubs. There's respiratory secretions. There's shit on those scrubs. Like it's
If
not
trying to,
hot like
if you're
at
trying
all.
to hook
It's
up
gross.
with a nurse, take her away.
From the hospital. We want to move away from
Plan the
scrubs.
date.
Yeah.
Plan the date.
Yeah. 4.
Hmm.
I think massage therapists at the nurses station was a pretty good thing. I do like the monster.
It's a good idea. Diet Coke.
Yeah.
Diet Coke is life. And then 5, put sausage gravy on your tater tots.
Try that.
It's really
Breakfast
good.
is the best meal of the day in a hospital.
If I could only eat one meal for the rest of my life, it would be breakfast.
Mm-hmm. Especially at the hospital.
It is. This was great.
Anyways, love you guys. You're not alone.
You're doing great.
That's
Just keep
fine.
showing up.
Yeah, please. I love you. And keep advocating for yourselves and them baby
be nice
nurses.
to baby nurses.
Be nice
That's
to
what
them
we need.
baby nurses.
Raise up a baby nurse. It takes a village.
It really does.
It takes a village.
It does.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Good night.